Lithuanian Jews or Litvaks are Jews with roots in the Grand Duchy of Lithuania. The term is sometimes used to cover all Orthodox Jews who follow a Lithuanian style of life and learning, whatever their ethnic background. The area where Lithuanian Jews lived is referred to in Yiddish as Líte. Lithuania was historically home to a large and influential Jewish community that was almost entirely eliminated during the Holocaust. Before World War II, the Lithuanian Jewish population was some 160,000, about 7% of the total population. Vilnius had a Jewish community of nearly 100,000, about 45% of the city's total population. There were over 110 synagogues and 10 yeshivas in Vilnius alone. About 2,000 Jews were counted in Lithuania during the 2005 census. Quoting the research done by H. G. Adler into Poland during World War II called Theresienstadt 1941–1945, there were 80,000 Jews conscripted into Poland's independent army prior to the German invasion who identified themselves as Lithuanian Jews. Using different sources, Holocaust researchers claimed there were between 60,000 and 65,000 Jewish soldiers in Poland's independent army who identified themselves as Lithuanian Jews. Etymology. The Yiddish adjective Litvish means Lithuanian. The noun for a Lithuanian Jew is Litvak. The term Litvak itself originates from Litwak, a Polish term denoting a man from Lithuania, which however went out of use before the 19th century, only to be revived around 1880 in the narrow meaning of a Lithuanian Jew. Of the main Yiddish dialects in Europe, the Litvish Yiddish dialect was spoken by Jews in Lithuania, Belarus, Latvia, Estonia and northeast Poland, including Suwałki, Łomża, and Białystok. However, following the dispute between the Hasidim and the Misnagdim, in which the Lithuanian academies were the heartland of opposition to Hasidism, Lithuanian came to have the connotation of Misnagdic Judaism generally, and to be used for all Jews who follow the traditions of the great Lithuanian yeshivot, whether or not their ancestors actually came from Lithuania. In modern Israel, Líte is often used for all Haredi Jews who are not Hasidim. Other expressions used for this purpose are yeshivish and misnagdim. Both the words Litvish and Líte are somewhat misleading, because there are also Hasidic Jews from Greater Lithuania and lots of Lithuanian Jews who are not Haredim. The term misnagdim, on the other hand, is somewhat outdated, because the opposition between the two groups has lost much of its relevance. Yeshivish is also problematic because Hasidim now make use of yeshivot as much as the Litvish Jews. Ethnicity, religious customs and heritage. The characteristically Lithuanian approach to Judaism was marked by a concentration on highly intellectual Talmud study. Lithuania became the heartland of the traditionalist opposition to Hasidism. Though outnumbered and named Misnagdim by the Hasidim, the Lithuanian traditionalists believed that the standard rabbinic Judaism predated Hasidism and was Judaism in its original and authentic form. Differences between the groups grew to the extent that, in popular perception, Lithuanian and Misnagd became virtually interchangeable terms. However, a sizable minority of Lithuanian Jews belong to Hasidic groups, including Chabad, Slonim, Karlin and Koidnov. With the spread of the Enlightenment, many Lithuanian Jews became devotees of the Haskalah movement in Eastern Europe, pressing for better integration into European society. And today many leading academics, scientists and philosophers are of Lithuanian Jewish descent. The most famous Lithuanian institution of Jewish learning was Volosynd Yeshiva, which was the model for most later yeshivas. 20th century Lithuanian yeshivas include Ponevizhtelsh, Mir, Kelm, and Slabodka, which bear the names of their Lithuanian forebears. American offspring of the Lithuanian yeshiva movement include Yeshiva Rabbi Chaim Berlin, Yeshivas Rabbeinu Yisrael Meir HaKohen and Beth Medrash Govoa, as well as numerous other yeshivas founded by students of Lakewood's founder, Rabbi Aharon Kotela. In theoretical Talmud study, the leading Lithuanian authorities were Chaim Soloveitchik and the Briska school. Rival approaches were those of the Mir and Telsh yeshivas. In practical halakha, the Lithuanians traditionally followed the Aruch HaShulchan, though today the Lithuanian yeshivas prefer the Mishnah Berurah, which is regarded as both more analytic and more accessible. In the 19th century, the Orthodox Ashkenazi residents of the Holy Land were, broadly speaking, divided into Hasidim and Perashim, who were Lithuanian Jews influenced by the Vilna Gaon. For this reason, in modern-day Israeli Haredi parlance, the terms Litvak or Litvasha, or in Hebrew Litim, are often used loosely to include any non-Hasidic Ashkenazi Haredi individual or institution. Another reason for this broadening of the term is the fact that many of the leading Israeli Haredi yeshivas are successor bodies to the famous Yeshivat of Lithuania, though the present-day members may or may not be descended from Lithuanian Jews. In reality, both the ethnic makeup and the religious traditions of the misnagged communities are much more diverse. Customs of Lithuanian non-Hasidic Jews consist of wearing of tefillin during non-Sabbath days of the intermediate days of the festival Chol Hamod, the pronunciation of the Holim as EJ. Although not widespread and uniform among Lithuanian Jews, the shin being pronounced the same way as sin. History. Jews began living in Lithuania as early as the 13th century. In 1388 they were granted a charter by Vytautas, under which they formed a class of freemen subject in all criminal cases directly to the jurisdiction of the Grand Duke and his official representatives, and in petty suits to the jurisdiction of local officials on an equal footing with the lesser nobles, boyars, and other free citizens. As a result, the community prospered. In 1495 they were expelled by Alexander Jagiellon, but allowed to return in 1503. The Lithuanian Statute of 1566 placed a number of restrictions on the Jews, and imposed sumptuary laws, including the requirement that they wear distinctive clothing, including yellow caps for men and yellow kerchiefs for women. The Khmelnytsky uprising destroyed the existing Lithuanian Jewish institutions. Still, the Jewish population of Lithuania grew from an estimated 120,000 in 1569 to approximately 250,000 in 1792. After the 1793 second partition of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, Lithuanian Jews became subjects of the Russian Empire. Lithuanian Jews in the Second World War. The Jewish Lithuanian population before World War II numbered around 160,000, or about 7% of the total population. At the beginning of the war, some 12,000 Jewish refugees fled into Lithuania from Poland. By 1941, the Jewish population of Lithuania had swelled to approximately 250,000, or 10% of the total population. During the German invasion of June 1941, 206,800 Jews were murdered by the Nazis and Lithuanian collaborators. Notable execution locations were in the Pont area Woods and the Ninth Fort. Culture. Litvaks have an identifiable mode of pronouncing Hebrew and Yiddish. This is often used to determine the boundaries of Líte. Its most characteristic feature is the pronunciation of the vowel holim as. In the popular perception, Litvaks were considered to be more intellectual and stoic than the rivals, the Galicians, who thought of them as cold fish. They, in turn, disdained Galitzers as irrational and uneducated. Ira Steingrut's Yiddish knowledge cards devote card to this Ashkenazi version of the Hatfields and McCoys. Quote, "This difference is of course connected with the Hasidic Misnag debate, Hasidism being considered the more emotional and spontaneous form of religious expression. The two groups differed not only in their attitudes and the pronunciation, but also in their cuisine. The Galitzers were known for rich, heavily sweetened dishes in contrast to the plainer, more savory Litvische versions, with the boundary known as the gefilte Fischlein. Genetics. The Lithuanian Jewish population may exhibit a genetic founder effect. The utility of these variations has been the subject of debate. One variation, which is implicated in familial hypercholesterolemia, has been dated to the 14th century, corresponding to the establishment of settlements in response to the invitation extended by Gediminas in 1323, which encouraged German Jews to settle in the newly established city of Vilnius. A relatively high rate of early onset dystonia in the population has also been identified as possibly stemming from the founder effect. Jews in Lithuania today. Interest among descendants of Lithuanian Jews has spurred tourism and a renewal in research and preservation of the community's historic resources and possessions. Increasing numbers of Lithuanian Jews are interested in learning and practicing the use of Yiddish. The beginning of the 21st century was marked by conflicts between members of Chabad Lubavitch and secular leaders. In 2005, Chief Rabbi Shalom Berkrinsky was physically removed from the synagogue by two men hired by the community's secular leader Mr. Alperovich, who then declared a new chief rabbi. For more details, see Chabad Lubavitch-related controversies. Lithuania. Among notable contemporary Lithuanian Jews are the brothers Emanuelis Zingris and Marcus Zingris, Anatolijas Senderovas, Arturas Bumsteinas, Arkadijas Vinokuris, Gurkas Sakas, Gidonis Sapirobilis, Dovydas Bluvsteinas, Leonidas Donskis, Ichokas Meris, Benjaminas Gorbulskis, Chaim Barak Utinsky, Grigorijas Kanovasius, Raphaelas Karpis, David Jeringas, Leora Grodnikide, Arkadijas Godsmanas, Ilyu Bereznikas, Adomas Jakovskis, Marius Jakovskis, Alexandra Jakovskide, Adasa Skliatarskide, etc. Israeli people of Lithuanian Jewish descent. A large number of Lithuanian Jews settled in Israel, many of them and their descendants becoming famous within the country. Famous Israelis of Lithuanian Jewish descent include Ehud Barak, former IDF general, Israeli defense minister and prime minister of Israel; Amos Oz, Israeli writer and intellectual; Bar Rafaeli, Israeli supermodel; Daniel Kahneman, Nobel Prize-winning psychologist; Yemima Avodah Chernovitz, Hebrew children's writer; Joseph Klausner, Jewish historian and professor of Hebrew literature; Abba Eban, former Israeli ambassador to United States and United Nations, former Minister of Foreign Affairs, former Minister of Education.